Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair, and to the second week of John Green Month. This week we're going to take a look at Looking for Alaska. Yes, that joke was necessary. Looking for Alaska was John's first book that got published, and while The Fault in Our Stars is my favorite, Looking for Alaska is a really close second. Sorry, abundance of Catherines and paper towns, but I like this one. So, let's get to the book.
Welcome to John Green Month.
The cover is that interesting enigma of book covers, as the one that's used was not the one that was supposed to be used. It was supposed to just be a plume of smoke. However, bookstores thought that a cover with cigarette smoke would make people want to smoke.
There is logic in what he says.
So now it's a candle. So it's still symbolic, since it's a pretty tall candle, and the wick is still pretty big, meaning it was snuffed out short, which would make sense if you've read the book. On to the story proper. The story opens up as the main character, Miles Halter, leaves his home in Florida to attend Culver Creek Preparatory High School in Alabama for his junior year. He really likes last words, and uses Francois Rabelais, I apologize if I mispronounced that, last words, "I go to seek a great perhaps," as his argument for choosing boarding school at such a late age. He's also a fan of biographies, which means we would not see eye to eye on our favorite books. Soon after arriving, Miles meets his roommate, Chip the Colonel Martin. The Colonel soon provides Miles with his very own nickname, Pugs, ironic as Miles is tall and slender, which is weird, as neither of them know how to use an iron. Miles is later introduced to the Colonel's friend, Alaska Young. Alaska is an attractive, yet emotionally unstable girl, with a great rat personality. Two of them, actually. Besides Alaska, the Colonel also introduces him to Takumi, a student of Japanese descent. Alaska tells Pudge about Simon Bolivar's last words, which were, "Damn it, how will I ever get out of this labyrinth?" Miles asks her what the labyrinth is, and she tells them that it's a David Bowie movie. I mean, The Mystery. After they joke about Alaska having a boyfriend and Pudge being single, they make a deal. If Miles can figure out what the labyrinth is, then Alaska will get him laid. Wish I went to that school. I wish I had a copy of Labyrinth. Later, Pudge is grabbed out of bed, duct-taped, and tossed into a nearby lake by the Weekday Warriors, a group of rich Birmingham area students of Culver Creek. The reason they duct-taped Pudge is because the year before one of their friends had been expelled, and they blamed the Colonel and his friends. And of course, because Miles didn't know the Colonel until 24 hours before, he's definitely the one to go after. Not the Colonel, who was also in the room at the time. Takumi insists that it can't be the Colonel's fault, because Maria, a friend of theirs, had also been expelled with him for violating 3 of their worst offenses: being naked in bed together, drunk, and smoking a joint. I mean, really, who needs to get naked and drunk to smoke a joint? Or naked and high to drink? Or drunk and high to get naked, although that last one makes sense. This argument incites a prank war between them. Alaska later admits that she was the one that told on Maria and Paul to the Eagle, to the dean, to save herself from being expelled. When in doubt, Sniff. Alaska sets Pudge up with a girl, Lara. Pudge and Lara have a disastrous date, which ends with Pudge having a mild concussion and throwing up on her pants. Sounds like a normal date to me. Alaska and Pudge drink, and do many things together, causing him to fall in love with her, despite the complications of their relationships, like the her dating someone thing. I can sympathize with him on that front. Oh, Jenna Louise Coleman, you will be mine one day. Moving on. The Colonel and Alaska have been planning a pre-prank to lull the Warriors into a state of peace. The weekend of the pre-prank, Pudge and his friends head to the old barn by the school. Takumi and Pudge light firecrackers by the Eagle's house, causing him to run after them. The Colonel and Alaska would change the Warriors' grades on their report cards, and finally Lara got blue dye in the Warriors' shampoo and hair gel, causing them to have blue hair. The next day, while they're still at the barn, they drink, smoke, and try to pass the time. While inebriated, Alaska tells them about her mother's death from an aneurysm when she was 8. She feels guilty for not calling 911, even though she didn't understand what was happening at the time, because, you know, she was 8. Pudge figures her mother's death made her impulsive and rash. He concluded that the labyrinth was a person's suffering that we must find our way out of. When they return to the school, Pudge and Alaska end up alone together. Alaska dares Pudge to hook up with her, and they begin making out. She stops, telling him she's too sleepy and they can leave it to be continued. Yeah, to be continued is just how Sliders ended too. See how well that ended out? I mean, the show hadn't been good since mid-season 3, but still. Then they all fell asleep. Alaska received a phone call in the middle of the night and leaves her room hysterically crying and tells her friends that she has to leave. They assume that she needs some time to think and be alone, so they let her go. That'll be fine, I'm sure. In the morning, the Eagle held an assembly. They assume it's about the death of their religious studies teacher, since he was old and sick. However, he's there, and the Eagle tells them that the bad news is that Alaska Young is dead. What? 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 Hold on. Okay, it turns out that her car crashed into a police cruiser at the scene of a truck accident on the highway, the steering wheel crushing her chest, killing her. The Colonel and Pudge feel horrible, feeling they helped her die by letting her go. They find out the only way that it could have happened was if she tried to squeeze through the truck on a police cruiser, which they don't believe she was stupid enough to do, or if she did it on purpose, committing suicide. This causes them to wonder if they really are to blame or not. If she did commit suicide, then the Colonel believes she was selfish in making them help her. The Colonel insists on questioning Jake, her boyfriend, but Pudge refuses to, still clinging on to the hope that Alaska wanted to be with him. They argue, the Colonel saying Pudge only loved the fun side of Alaska, not all of her. Afterward, they make up, with Pudge realizing that it is true, and the Colonel confessing he's just angry and looking for someone to blame. They've been annoying Takumi and Lara for a long time, and apologize to them too, though Lara and Pudge don't seem to get back together. As a way of celebrating Alaska's life, they plan the last prank. On Speaker Day, the junior and senior classes are supposed to choose someone, a lawyer or a small politician, to come speak to them. All of the junior class, weekday warriors, Pudge's friends, and everyone else help with the prank. They convince the Eagle to let a friend of Pudge's dad come speak of how sex is perceived by adolescents. In reality, they hired a male stripper, which John Green actually did. I'll leave a link to the video in the description. When the man starts to give his speech, Takumi starts the music. The man shouts, "This one's for Alaska Young," and strips in front of everyone. But no nudity. They are kids after all. The whole school finds it hilarious, even the Eagle, who doesn't punish them for it. Pugs finds Alaska's copy of The General in His Labyrinth, with the Labyrinth quote underlined. In the margin was written straight and fast. Later they remember what date Alaska's mom had died and realize that Alaska died the morning after. They figure one of two things happened. Alaska remembered the anniversary of her mother's death and came to the room sobbing that she had to go, referring to her mother's grave. But it was already after midnight the next day. She's drunk and angry at herself. When she sees the truck and the police cruisers, she was either drunk enough to think she could pass through it, or so angry with herself that she committed suicide, taking the straight and fast way out. On the last day of school, Takumi confesses in a note that he was the last person to see Alaska alive, as he ran into her before she went to her car. He let her go too. Pugs realizes that this doesn't matter. Their letting her go doesn't matter as much anymore. He forgives Alaska for going and knows that she forgives him for letting her go. He'll always love her. Present tense. So, that was Looking for Alaska. I loved it, and it was an enjoyable read and was a pretty funny book, but it had a lot of sad mixed in, which can be tough, and I admit that after the scene where they announced her death, that was my reaction for about 5 minutes. So, I highly recommend this to all John Green fans. Next week, we'll take a look at Abundance of Catherines. He really likes last words, and he uses Francois Rabelais' last words. I apologize if I mispronounced that. I go to see... I apologize. First day of school. Brain's a bit fried. Afterwards, they make up, with Pugs realizing that it's true, and the Colonel confessing he's just angry, looking for someone to blame. Shit, I missed a line.